Next topic, the divine indweller Antaryami. The coming verse is a clear and unequivocal declaration of the divinity ever present in all beings, Sarva Bhutanam, as an amsha of Ishvara. Very important verse.
ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशे अर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया.
The supreme divine being dwells, Ishvaraha Tishtati, in the hearts of all beings, Arjuna. Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna, mobilizing all with his mysterious power. Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Mayaya, like an engine hidden in a machine. Yantra Arudhani. So you don't know it. Many of you in your exam wrote very correctly about Dehi. You said most of us don't know that the Dehi exists because it's hidden. The presence is hidden. But it's without that, the Deha is an empty, dead corpse. This divinity remains concealed in the cave of the heart, and so we in our ignorance are not aware of this reality. Even if we acknowledge, accept and believe in God, the divinity we seek is mostly somewhere outside us, accessible perhaps in a temple or a church or a mosque or in the heavens above. However, this open declaration in the Gita suggests that we need not look and search outside, for the divine is within us, so near and yet so far. This is why in traditional Indian wisdom, self-realization is considered as God realization. The divine resides not only in myself, but in yours too. Indeed, in all sentient beings, as well as in every atom manifested in the universe, and in the formless Akshara, from which all manifestation has emerged. This is the sense of the Upanishadic saying, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. All this is pervaded by Ishvara. In our ignorance and arrogance, we do not realize this. The ego self, Ahankara, in us has usurped the lordship over our beings. We point at our free will as evidence of our ability to do what we want, and all our actions are thus filled with the notion of doership. We even believe that there is originality in the desires that drive us to action, little realizing that it is all a play of Prakriti's Gunas. Sri Aurobindo points to the hollowness of these fondly held and cherished beliefs which we need to go beyond on the path of liberation. I think this is a fantastic, short, pithy statement by Sri Aurobindo that's worth underlining. This is what he said. Our ego, boasting of freedom, is at every moment the slave, the toy and puppet of countless beings, powers, forces, influences in universal nature. In self-awareness, you can see all that. You can see the play of your ego, and you can see how it is so easily influenced by so many forces outside. And that's tremendous self-awareness. The self-abnegation of the ego in the divine is its self-fulfillment. That means the dissolution of the ego. That's actually nirvana. Its surrender to that which transcends it is its liberation from bonds and limits and its perfect freedom. This profound delusion of doership has been compared by analogy in traditional wisdom to grains of rice in a pot of boiling water. They jump around believing that they are the creators of their wonderful kinetic energy. Do you know where this example is from? Which scripture? Grains of rice jumping up. You know, there's a fire below the pot, but the grain of rice which jumps up and up with this kinetic energy thinks that it is actually jumping up and down. I mean, it's just an example. But the fire is from below. We behave like that. Free will, we must be able to do this, do that. This is actually from the Srimad Bhagavatam, this example. All sentient beings are likewise mobilized into kinetic action fired by apara Prakriti, which derives its energy source from the hidden Kshara Purusha. The energy source is mounted within them by the mysterious power of Maya, compelling them into action. It is in this way that machines operate when switched on. Yantra Rudhani. In most beings living in ignorance, this motion is not unlike that of puppets revolving Brahmayan helplessly as in a merry-go-round, until there is a full awakening, self-realization and ascension to the higher nature. So that's what's hinted at here. Until there is a self-awareness into who you truly are, you're like a puppet, moving around helplessly, subject to the play of the gunas. Very powerful line. Next verse. So, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna is a line that's very beautiful to remember. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, that means all sentient beings, Hriddeshe, in the cave of the heart, Tishtati, resides. I don't think anywhere you will find such a strong statement. Ishvara is residing. That's your Antaryami. Otherwise, if you're not aware of it, you will be driven like a machine. Yantra Rudhani Mayaya, by the mysterious power of Maya.
यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि.
Realizing this true wisdom, Arjuna, yat jnatva Pandava, you will not fall into delusion again. Na punah moham evam yasyasi. You will then see all beings. Yena bhutani asheshena drakshyasi, in the one self, then in me. Atmani athomai. It's a very powerful line. Atmani athomai. So here, there is an emphasis, a preference given in the Gita to really discovering your Akshara first, before you discover Purushottama. Do you understand what I am saying? So the Gita is a synthesis, it kind of accepts all traditions. There are people with preferences. So even if you take Advaita, you have the pure Advaita of Shankara. Then you have the Vishishta Advaita. Then you have Dvaita. These are the three traditionally, where all have their places. And in the grand scheme of... So often what happens is, and I see this in some emails from some of you who have some exposure to this, you say, but this is not acceptable. This is acceptable to whom? The Gita says, whatever is acceptable to you, I also accept, and I'll reciprocate, I'll talk the same language you want me to speak to. But if that's the preference of some other person to access the divine, including the Nirishwaravadi, who says, no, I don't believe in any of it, that's also okay with me. Do you understand? So it's a very broad approach, very universal approach. We have our personal preferences, and even those preferences will change in time. But the recommendation given here is the best, the safest, the surest way is get into Akshara, then get into Purushottama. Discover the impersonal divine, then discover the personal divine. Then you will be able to appreciate both. Do you understand what I am saying? So, but you don't deny anything. At the very least, have the Shraddha and say, even if you have not discovered, accept it tentatively and move on in life. Okay. Realizing this wisdom while living an active life is somewhat like waking up in a dream and knowing that it is a dream. Can you say that this experience we are having right now is not a dream? Not a dream? Yes. How can you say? How can you say this is not a dream? In the dream also you can have those experiences. Yes or no? Actually this is a dream. Wait till you wake up to discover that it's a dream. There's no way of proving it's not a dream. But look at this is a Maya, look at the mystery of it all. Let's say this is a dream, even if it may not be. When you wake up, you realize that you only created this beautiful world. Look at what you've created. This classroom and this projector and these so many sarva bhutanam, so many sentient beings and even inanimate objects. You created, or you were forced to create, you had no choice. But you identified with one among the lot. You are happy with when your ego is satisfied, and you get embarrassed when you are put to shame. Do you understand? That's how we operate. But the miracle is, it's only on waking we discover this. There's an Upanishad called the Mandukya Upanishad, which goes deeply into this. It talks of 4 states of consciousness. One state is deep sleep. Ghada Nidra. Sushupti. 0. You don't exist, the world doesn't exist, it's a blank. That's one state we all go through, and that's when our batteries get recharged and all that. What's the next state? Next state is a dream state, Swapnavastha. That's a magical world where time and scale and all gets pulled out of proportion. You can sleep for 5 minutes and live like a king for those 5 minutes, or you could be a beggar and a pauper, who cares? You understand? So you don't have any control over which way the dream is going to unfold. It could become a nightmare sometimes, or it could be a wonderful dream. Suppose it's a very lovely dream, then you don't want to wake up. And sometimes you wake up and you go back, you can continue with the same dream. Has it happened to you? Oh, wonderful, because you want to dream. Third is the waking state. In the waking state, you say, oh, I had a dream. So, you woke from that state. But the so-called waking state is also a pretty dumb state. Why? You are caught in the play of the Gunas. Helplessly you are tossed around. So there's a 4th state. You know what it's called in the tradition? It's called Turyavastha. The 4th state, you are awake and you know that this is a game being played. So it's like lucid dreaming. In lucid dreaming, and that's a rare experience, you're dreaming and you know you're dreaming. You're dreaming. So when you know you're dreaming, you don't take it too seriously, isn't it? You don't get the pay package. You know it's a dream. Theek hai bhai, no problem. But if it's a real thing, you will say, oh my God, you'll get a heart attack if you don't get it and somebody else gets it. Here it's cool, it's a dream. Do you understand? That's how the self-realized person lives. You're not affected by what's happening. You know it's a game, but it's a game that you have to play, but you play it with joy, not affected, not obsessed, not wanting outcomes to necessarily go in a certain way. But still you'll play, it's a game. It's called the game of life. Yes or no? So that's a wonderful way to live. That's possible. Okay. One is then no longer deluded and remains free of affliction of all that happens. One may still have no control over what happens, which is determined by so many karmic forces, but one is essentially liberated. One respects the divinity underlying all manifestation and plays one's assigned role in the drama of life with freedom and skill, keeping the well-being and evolution of all loka sangraham in mind. Indeed, as Sri Aurobindo says, man's highest and freest possible experience is that of a quietistic inner largeness and silence reconciled with an outer dynamic, active living. I like to compare this with a game of bridge. How many of you play bridge? card game? You don't have inter-hostel bridge games, contests? Gone, dead. Now you have other games to play, I know. Well, bridge is a very skillful game. How many of you play cards? What game do you play? Rummy and that kind of thing. Huh? What do you play? You don't want to tell, too ashamed. Okay. Well, bridge is a skillful game, 4 players. And I don't want to get into the details. But life is like that, You are dealt a hand. You've got a hand. And in bridge, you make a bid and you have to just keep the bid. You win only if you keep the bid. You can make an outrageous bid and keep it, then you win like hell. So, winning is about playing to your ability and keeping your bid. Or losing gracefully, one of the two. Now, a skillful bridge player never cribs. A poor player is one who will say, yo, what cards did I get? And you say, see, such nice cards. Actually, one of them puts down the hand, you can see that. Such good cards and I got such bad cards, and you bemoan your fate in life. No, that's not a skillful player. A skillful player will say, whatever hand I get, I'm going to play it to the best of my ability and I'm going to win. The same is true of a skillful actor, the Shivaji Ganeshan or Raj Kapoor. The bad actors always insist they should get the hero's role and the hero must be a good guy, playing Lord Ram all the time. No, that's not. Raj Kapoor plays, Main Avara Hoon and the Joker and all that, makes fun of himself. He's a great player. So whether you play the part of a beggar or an emperor, the game is to play it as skillfully as possible. Actually, it doesn't matter because it's all a game, yaar. It's all a game, and actually the truth is there's one player playing all the roles. Who is that one player? Who is the one player playing all the roles? That is Ishvara. And the Ishvara Amshas are playing the different parts. Now you get the hang of it. So it's a game. Don't worry, don't take things too seriously, don't cry too much. But cry once in a while, that's also part of the game. The profound message given here by the Purushottama through the divine teacher is to see all beings in the self and then in me, Atmanyato Mayi. The call is for a merging of the separate self into the infinite wideness of our divine source. It is a call for unification, for impersonality, for seeing and respecting the Antaryami in all beings. The merging here implies not only an ego transcendence into the Akshara Purusha, which is inactive in its self-delight, but also a merging into Purushottama, implying a passage from the lower nature, Apara Prakriti, into the higher, Para Prakriti. Thus, the divine is free to act directly through the developed individual instrumentation as deemed fit. Next topic, the evolutionary journey of the individual soul. The soul, which is the divine spark in sentient beings, evolves in the human being through many lives as the Antaratman or Chaitya Purusha, which remains veiled in man's innermost being in the heart region. It is believed that the soul's evolution can take place only in human form on earth, and this is the reason why a human birth is considered to be a precious gift and opportunity for the evolution of consciousness. Just like to be a student at IIT is a precious gift. But just like we often waste this precious gift for various reasons, we also waste the human life, the precious gift that we have. While it away, and it's too late to, becomes too late often to make corrections, right? So wake up, enjoy the gift and live up to your fullest potential. Therefore, it is not something to be whiled away or wasted. Gradually, this soul evolves over many lifetimes and recovers its original and pristine divine nature in its fullness and becomes identified with the Antaryami. Until then, it remains in the background as a secret witness, according to Sri Aurobindo, who goes on to comment on its status as a constitutional ruler who allows his ministers to rule for him, delegates to them his empire, silently assents to their decisions, and only now and then puts in a word which they can at any moment override and act otherwise. This is how the Ishvara Amsha in us gets overruled by our ego. Do you understand? It's very powerfully put. So there is a divinity in us trying to point to the right direction. Don't go that way, go this way. But sometimes we don't want to hear. We overrule. And after some time it recedes into its quiet birth, and the veils of ignorance take charge. So breaking through that is a huge shift. Once the soul has evolved and come forward, it takes up its rightful place as a true monarch, the Dehi in charge of the Deha. In this process of emergence of the soul, it serves as the inner guru, consecrating and unifying all the divergent parts of the being, physical, vital and mental, thus facilitating the transition from the lower nature into the higher nature, para Prakriti. Again, here's Sri Aurobindo. It is in its nature something that is put forth from the divine to support the evolution, and it must do so till the divine's purpose in its evolution is accomplished. Karma is only a machinery. It is not the fundamental cause of terrestrial existence. It cannot be, for when the soul first entered this existence, it had no karma. So, reincarnation cannot be blamed on karma, because the first incarnation was definitely an intention of the divine to do something creative for some purpose, right? That original svabhava is still there, and that mission has to be accomplished. The true svabhava of the being lies in its authentic soul nature, which is a seed that lies embedded in the soul. As the soul evolves, the svabhava also develops, initially through imperfection due to the play of the lower nature's gunas as it gets purified and consecrated. Eventually it begins to operate as an authentic soul force, a divine Shakti for the divine purpose without any trace of doership. The self-identity shifts through various phases from the false ego self to the evolved soul. At the final stage, when the individuation and unification are complete, the result is an extraordinary sense of fulfillment, completion and joy, ananda. In many instances, the full individuation may remain incomplete, but there is self-realization and absorption in the akshara, or a complete devotional surrender, whereby by divine grace the soul is allowed to merge into the divine source without seeking to serve further as an instrument. It is this that is commonly conceived to be moksha by those who perceive all existence to be full of sorrow, dukkha. The freedom thus sought is an ultimate release that finally exits from a world, samsara, of relentlessly cycling birth and death. After its divine mission and purpose in manifestation are fully served, the soul unites and merges into its source, the Atman. Its basic nature is one of joy, ananda, which gets reflected in our actions based on a manifestation of truth, goodness, beauty and sacredness. The evolving soul therefore provides us a direct and sure access to the divine indweller that it represents. Indeed, the very urge towards spirituality is an inspiration we receive from our Antaratman, which we need to invoke daily in making spiritual progress and excelling in our work and in our relationships. The need for balance.
नात्यश्नतस्तु योगोऽस्ति न चैकान्तमनश्नतः न चातिस्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन.
This yoga is not for one who overeats. Na atyashnata tu yoga asti. Nor for one who always starves, the other extreme. Na cha ekantam anashnata. And not for one who sleeps too much. Na cha atisvapna shilasya. Nor for one who gets no sleep. Arjuna. Jagrita na eva cha Arjuna. The restless, rajasic. So it's very clear. This is not for the guys who are operating in the extremes. You know, the word for one who sleeps too much is atisvapnashila. One guy who dreams too much in the horizontal position. Okay. One of the key features of equipoise is balance. We lose our way, we lose our poise, we lose our balance when we try taking to extremes. This is the key to the ancient Tao philosophy, which is said to apply to everything including food, relationships, work, money, etc. Here the art of staying in balance, of walking the Tao, is one of staying in the middle between what the Chinese refer to as doing and non-doing, yang and yin. The logic underlying this middle path is extremely simple. There is no stability if we try to stay with an extreme position, for we are likely to swing to the other extreme like a pendulum. If we take to extreme starving for days, then when we find food in front of us, we would not show any etiquette or mindfulness in our eating. We would simply devour the food and gorge it down vicariously. While fasting and other kinds of austerity, tapas, are considered to be very valuable in spirituality and in attaining self-mastery, they are never recommended to be followed in the extreme as a permanent way of life. This was discovered by none other than the Buddha, who himself underwent all kinds of torturous austerities for long, including near starvation to death. Contrary to the prevailing culture among ascetics, he declared that such practices were in fact harmful and arising out of delusion. These are clearly described as being tamasic in the Gita. Balance, on the other hand, is the essence of the sattvic way of austerity. While it is always beneficial for the purpose of learning, to experiment and touch the extremes and to stretch the limits of our capacity, we must do this in a way that will make such learning and practice stable, healthy and helpful. See, life is a marathon race. Even the yoga of the Gita, you have to pace it properly, otherwise you will run out of steam. Even meditation, you see, establishing a practice is not easy. But it's your life. You have to pace it well till you gain a mastery, and then you can move ahead. But you do it, with extreme energy and enthusiasm, and then you lose spirit after some time. That's what happens to most of us. It won't work. So you have to find your own balance and work out your own pace. The play of Rajoguna and Tamoguna are also evident in our modern consumerist culture and our high-stress lifestyles. The lack of balance is reflected in our inability to switch off our minds at will when we need to take rest or when we need to pay concentrated attention without getting distracted. Our restless minds tend to behave like overused computers with all kinds of useless programs running in a busy background that we cannot switch off. Okay. The lack of proper work-life balance is increasingly evident in modern times. The discipline and discrimination required for such balance are ideally to be initiated and inculcated in early education and mastered in later life. Actually, this is what I see is fundamentally missing in our modern education. No emphasis on this self-discipline. However, such self-discipline is generally found wanting even in the best of educational institutions in India, like the IITs, where students are given the best facilities and also adequate freedom. Students who should be sleeping well at night are found often hyperactive. This is not, as one might expect, related to an obsession with their studies. More commonly, they are busy indulging in all kinds of activities in their hostel rooms, such as watching films, playing digital games, getting lost in social media, and other addictions. Okay. As a result, they wake up late, do not bathe in the morning, miss out breakfast, and come late to class bleary-eyed and find themselves dropping off to sleep during lectures that they need to attend. This lack of sincerity and discipline, as well as poor time management, are also reflected in delayed submission of assignments, often copied from others at the last minute. There is clearly a need to develop a healthy balance between work and recreation and to avoid falling prey to adharma. It gets difficult for many students, unless inspired otherwise, to break out of a predominantly tamasic, rajasic culture. This often implies going against the grain of peer pressure and possible ridicule by those who are already well entrenched, and may lead one to feel a little lost. Such pressures and doubts could be countered by developing a strong aspiration, disciplined practice, sadhana, and by looking for inspiration. This will help individuals break through initially into a rajasic sattvic culture and later into a predominantly sattvic culture of integral education, physical, vital, mental, and spiritual. It is such a holistic vision that needs to be supported, understood, and encouraged by the teachers and administrators of our educational institutions. If this can be progressively achieved, it will serve to usher in a new order of spirituality at work in educational institutions. Students will be enabled thus to develop and spread this noble culture later on in their respective workplaces and homes, inspiring others. The tremendous resistance offered by the prevailing tamasic rajasic culture can be hardly underestimated. We see evidence of it in all walks of life in modern society. However, this has been the way in earlier societies too, as observed by the divine teacher of the Gita. So here's a quote from the Gita itself, verse 7.3. Among thousands of men, very few strive for perfection, and even among those who succeed, hardly anyone knows me truly. The reference here is to the reality that the transition from the lower nature to the higher nature is rare to see in the world around.